Well, welcome to this week's ReadAloud. Today we have Saundra Akers, who is an Ohio novelist and has written several novels in Ohio locales, like Washington Courthouse, and there's a whole list of them, too long for me to remember. But she's going to read from some of her own works. And I may.
Yes.
Saundra, welcome.
Hello. It's good to meet you all. As she said, I've been writing novels set in southern Ohio mostly. I grew up mostly in southern Ohio and read a story, a novel once that was set in Columbus, and thought it was so great to have the characters walking through streets that I knew and things like that. So I started setting the novels in small towns in southern Ohio. Those towns being Peebles, Bainbridge, Wavelry, West Union, Western Courthouse, Circleville, Chillicothe now, and Seeking Spring even. So I thought today I would read from some of the work that I've already published, and then maybe read some from what I have, what I'm working on now, the book I'm working on now, which is set basically in West Union, Ohio, down in Adams County. So I think what I'll do is start with the book that I'm currently working on. And that book is called Shattered Heart. And of course, this is just my first draft of the first part of the book. It's Shattered, H-A-R-T. Alicia Hart sat half-dressed on the edge of her bed. She'd managed to shower and to get her underwear and slip-on. Then she'd stopped and just sat there staring into the space of their bedroom. It had been hers and Nathan's. It would be only hers from now on. Nathan. Her voice formed the words, stretching it out plaintively. Her eyes were wide open. She wasn't conscious of crying, but the water of her tears was running out of her baby blues as if she were sobbing her insides out. Baby blues, that's what Nathan called my blue-green eyes when we first met, she thought. Now I'll never hear him say that or anything else ever again. She wanted to sink down into her bed and never get up again. Sooner or later, she'd wither away and die for lack of food and drink. It sounded so easy and the temptation was strong. Of course, she knew it wasn't a solution, but she almost wished it was. How was she to endure the showing, the funeral? Her mom and dad would be here, and her younger brother Chad would offer support the best he knew how. She knew that, but how could anyone understand if they hadn't been through losing a mate? Glancing at the clock, Alicia saw that it was already 4:30, and the viewing was from 5 to 8. She had to get her clothes on immediately and head out the door. It would take about 20 minutes to get to the funeral home. As she dressed, she thought about the way they told her of Nathan's accident. Nathan, the sharp-dressed professional, a chiropractor in West Union, had been found muddy and disheveled at the bottom of a hill where he'd been thrown from his car. He'd landed on the bank of Brush Creek, his body bloody and broken, his head caved in from contact with a tree or a rock. His car had gone on into the creek, but Nathan's body had fallen free of it. The accident was clear-cut, she was told. The sheriff saw skid marks where Nathan had lost control of his car on the road above. However, no one seemed to know why he'd been at that location in the first place, especially not Alicia. The West Union police had come knocking at her door night before last, stating how sorry they were to give the bad news to her about her husband of 3 years. They explained that although Nathan hadn't died within city limits, they'd agreed to notify the family for the sheriff's department as a courtesy. They had just come from telling his mother the bad news, they said. Alicia took the blow badly, and her mother had come to spend the intervening time with her. She'd only left a while ago so that she could get dressed for the viewing. Helen, her mother, had assured Alicia that she and Alicia's father would be at the funeral home to stand by the casket with her as early as possible. I won't be there myself if I don't snap to it. Taking a long black dress out of her closet, Alicia slipped it on and zipped it up. It was totally plain, a virtual sack dress, but that best fit her mood. She wasn't planning to wear any jewelry or makeup either. The world felt empty and stark to her today, and vanity was far from her mind. Alicia, a psychologist, had called her office manager and canceled her client sessions for the rest of the week. At least she didn't have to think about work for a little while. That was a good thing because she felt more in need of therapy than most of the clients were. She and Nathan had finally decided that the time was right for them to have a child. They were planning to start trying this week. Now she knew she'd never had that piece of Nathan to hold on to either. She had nothing of substance left, and she felt bereft and abandoned. Why had it all gone wrong? Pictures of their early days together kept flashing into her head. The pictures made Alicia feel even worse as she realized that it was all gone now. Everything she felt, had dreamed of, it was all gone. Her heart was broken. Like Humpty Dumpty, she'd never be able to get together again, not even with the help of all the king's horses and all the king's men. It'll never be the same, but don't think about that now. Think about the practical things. What do you have to do to host a viewing? What do you have to do to get through this awful time? She made it to Barnes' funeral home with only 5 minutes to spare. She found herself speeding to get there, and it occurred to her how ironic it would be if she killed herself trying to get to the viewing. Her parents had jumped in to make all the arrangements for the funeral, and at her request, her dad had even chosen and sent the flowers from the top of Nathan's casket for her. Alicia had felt paralyzed as if she couldn't do anything. How lucky it was for her that she had loving and responsible parents who were there to help. Nathan's face swam before her as she entered the funeral parlor. His eyes smiled at her. His teeth were showing as he gave her a wide smile. She could see his pale blue shirt and his navy blue suit, his dark hair, and round, clean-cut face, just the way he looked at her as he left for work the day of his death. The pictures twisted in her gut as she tried to focus on what she should do next. Oh, Nathan, we'll never have that little family now. We'll never grow old together. She walked hesitantly toward the casket, eyes turned down, fearful of what she was about to see. Nathan's mother was already at the casket. Her hands were holding Nathan's as she stared down into his silky bed. There was a rose on the panel above him, and the sides of the casket had roses as well. Alicia wondered if that was his favorite flower. She'd have to ask her dad why he'd chosen that casket. As Alicia stood back a little, feeling like an outsider at her own husband's funeral, Carol, Nathan's mother, was joined by his 2 sisters at the side of the coffin. Amy Pendergast and Alicia Hart, the sisters, held their mother's shoulders as she started to weep. Alicia moved up to her mother-in-law and put an arm around her, but the sisters moved away. Carol Hart stood stiffly as if she could only barely tolerate Alicia's touch, but she didn't pull away. Neither of them said anything. Alicia felt her own tears coming again, although she was strangely detached as if this tragedy was happening to someone else. After a couple of minutes, Carol Hart broke the embrace and moved away from the casket. Maybe I'm still in shock and it hasn't really hit me yet. That must be why I feel so weird. Nathan's sisters and his mother moved to sit in chairs that had been lined up facing the rear of the visitation room. A video of Nathan and his life was showing. Alicia noticed that there was almost no pictures of her. Most were of Nathan and his family, Nathan and his friends. Only 1 or 2 was of him and his wife. She wondered who had given the funeral part of the pictures to be used. It must have been his mother, she figured, seeing the choice of photos. Her dad would have given them pictures from her photo album. She didn't recognize most of these. Looking around, Alicia checked out the flowers and noticed the names of many professionals around town. It was a courtesy of the business community to honor a fellow professional, she supposed. She wondered how many of them even knew Nathan. People were standing in groups, talking in hushed voices. Nothing to wake the dead, of course. Alicia felt like laughing and crying at the same time. She wondered if she was about to become hysterical. She'd never felt like this in her life and didn't know what to do about it. But it seemed that someone else had beaten her to the hysterics. Her one-time best friend, Sheila Parks, had come into the room. She had gone to the casket and was standing there moaning, crying, pulling at her hair and screaming, oh, Nathan, why did you leave me?" That's the end of the first chapter.